Confident, confident, confident. I can be confident, 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 confident. I can be confident at work.
Hello and welcome to the Confident at Work podcast. I'm your host and your confidence coach, Anna Manning. We are back to our scheduled programming. The eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that there was no episode last week, which is very unusual for us around here, but we are back. And this week is a good one. So we're talking about coaching the unconscious mind. And very often when I'm working with a client, we're uncovering things that are sitting in that client's unconscious, things that they weren't consciously aware of, things which are impacting how they show up, what they do, what they struggle with, what they can't do. And I'm going to take you behind the scenes of some real coaching work, which is going to outline to you how change actually happens through one very specific example. So I'm going to introduce you to Beth, and Beth's name has been changed because she wished to remain anonymous, but she kindly agreed for me to share this process of her coaching with you so that you could see what it's like to peer into your unconscious mind and find there something that really needed to be addressed in order to change a behavior. In Beth's case, the behavior was pretty simple. She wanted to be more confident in her meetings. She felt like she was holding back. She was not saying things that she could have said. There would often be an idea or a suggestion or a contribution that she wanted to make, but she wasn't necessarily doing it. She was spending time in her head, second guessing, doubting, overthinking, then losing the moment, not interjecting, and just not contributing effectively in the way that she wanted to, and not contributing in the way that she was actually expected to by her role. Beth knew she knew what she was doing. She knew that she had the experience and the expertise, but somehow that just wasn't connecting to her ability to be able to put across that expertise live in those meetings. When Beth came to me, this had been going on for some time, and she was pretty frustrated by the whole thing. She tried to change it. She tried to fake it. She tried to push through it, but it was still happening. And so Beth came to me, actually via her boss, who very helpfully had noticed and suggested that some coaching might help. I think Beth was a little skeptical when she first spoke to me about whether it actually would help, because she'd been trying to do something about this for a little while, and she had no idea why it was really happening. She knew logically that she knew what she was doing. She had contributions to make. It wasn't like she didn't have anything to say. She did. She just didn't seem to be able to get it out of her mouth at the right time. And as you can imagine, that was pretty frustrating for her. Not only because she had good ideas and suggestions and contributions, but she also wanted to show people what her expertise was. But because she couldn't, the doubts had really started to creep in. Should I be in this role if I can't even put my point across in this meeting? Should they have hired me? Right? And you can see how that could lead you into a low confidence cycle, which we really want to try and avoid. But what Beth didn't know was she had what I call an unconscious bind that was creating this problem. It was a hidden internal conflict that was creating the behavior and was preventing her from changing it. So I'm going to take you through what Beth discovered during the course of our coaching and how she was able to change her behavior from not speaking in meetings to speaking confidently and making the point that she wanted to make. I'm going to take you through a 4-step process. And as we're going through this, I want you to keep in mind that if there is a behavior that you want to change, let's say, like Beth, you don't feel as confident speaking in meetings as you would like, even though you know you have the expertise and the experience, there may be an unconscious reason why that behavior is happening. There may be an unconscious reason why you are trying to change it and not succeeding. So just keep that in mind as we go through this example. So this 4-step process goes like this. Step 1, we recognize the unconscious belief. And in Beth's case, this was a bind that she was in. Step 2 was that we found disconfirming knowledge. Step 3 was Beth noticing that disconfirming knowledge in practice. And step 4 was really a step for me. It was about verifying that the change had happened and would be sustained. So I'm going to take you through those in a little bit more detail. So step 1, to recognize the unconscious belief, the unconscious thinking, which was creating the problem. So remember, Beth had no idea why this was happening. She had no idea why she couldn't seem to make the points that she wanted in those meetings, because she knew that she had the expertise. She knew that she had the experience. Logically, there was no reason why she couldn't share what she knew, but she couldn't. Not in the moment. So we started to explore. And I asked Beth to take me to that moment, to really double click into it and go back, see it in her mind's eye so she can feel it in her body. She can notice what's going on around her. And we can kind of recreate that moment so that she can really start to tell me and start to notice what was happening, what she was thinking. And as we went into that, as clients very often do, Beth kind of started to pick up a thread, a metaphorical thread. And when a client does this, I'm interested. They're saying things which they say, I don't know where this is coming from, or, oh, I don't know what this has got to do with it. And I think it's definitely got something to do with it. Let's continue. So Beth's picking up this thread about how there's other people in the meeting and those other people tend to talk too much and they're just those people in meetings. And actually, how does she feel about those people in meetings? She doesn't really like them that much, doesn't think they add that much, and she thinks they just talk for the sake of having their voices heard. Now, as we picked up this thread and we followed it along, we happened upon some unconscious thinking. So a thought pattern, a belief that was in Beth's brain that she didn't have access to on a daily basis. So she didn't know that she was thinking this thing, but she was. And when she was, it was having an impact. And the thing was this: it took a little bit for us to go around it and get to it and really clarify it. But once we clarified it, here it was. If I'm confident and I speak up, I'll be like one of those people, and I don't want that. Interesting, eh? Interesting for Beth, because she had no idea that that's what she was believing. Until she said it and we saw it, she had no idea that within her unconscious mind was the belief that if she's confident and she speaks up, she'll become like one of those people. And she definitely did not want to be like one of those people. She didn't like those people very much, or she at least didn't respect them professionally. Now, let's say somebody had programmed that thought into Beth's brain that said, if you're confident and you speak up, you'll be like one of those people. And she definitely didn't want to be like one of those people. Imagine it would be more difficult for her to be confident and speak up in meetings, because her logic goes, if I do, I'll be like one of those people. And she really did not want to be like one of those people. So that was the unconscious bind. And Beth had no idea she was thinking it. It wasn't immediately obvious or available to her. And very often in coaching, this is what we're doing. Some coaches call this recovering deletions. I don't like that phrase, because these thoughts, these beliefs, they have not been deleted. They are there living in your unconscious, directing actions, directing behavior. And sometimes they're directing it in a way that we really don't want, like in Beth's case. So that was step 1, recognize the unconscious thinking. In Beth's case, recognize the unconscious bind. Then step 2 is to find disconfirming knowledge. Now, step 2 may be different in different cases, but this is how it went in Beth's case. Once she noticed that she had this thought, this belief, she was able to check it, test it, and say, hang on a minute, I may have been believing that, and it may have created the result of me not speaking in those meetings, but do I actually even believe that that's true? And me as a coach at this point, I may have to do some work with a client to help them to test their thought, their belief. Now it's conscious from unconscious. Let's get it out on the table and actually have a bit of a look at it. And once we started to have a look at Beth's unconscious belief, this is what she discovered. Many people contribute confidently without being overbearing or attention seeking. In fact, she told me, I watch people do this in every single meeting I'm in. They're confident, they have their expertise, they have their experience, they know it, they're comfortable with it, but they're not annoying. They're not one of those people. They just share what they need to share at the appropriate moment. And it's fine. Because Beth's belief that if she spoke up and was confident, she would be like one of those people, is now conscious, it can be changed. And one of the ways it can be changed is by finding disconfirming knowledge. And for Beth, this actually wasn't very difficult because she already knew, she already believed that it was perfectly okay for people to contribute confidently without being overbearing or attention seeking. She watched people do it all the time. And because that was such a strong realization for her, and this often happens with clients, they kind of can't believe that they were ever thinking the unconscious thought when the disconfirming knowledge feels so clear and obvious to them. That was all we had time for in that session. So, in order to really set this up for Beth before her next session, I encouraged her to write down both the unconscious thought and the disconfirming knowledge that she'd found. So out of that session, she took away 2 sentences on bits of paper. The first one was her unconscious sentence, which was now conscious. If I'm confident and speak up, I'll be like one of those people, and I don't want that. The second sentence was her disconfirming knowledge. Many people contribute confidently without being overbearing or attention seeking. I wanted Beth to take both of those sentences out into the world with her over her week because 2 reasons. One, I want to keep what was previously unconscious conscious. I want Beth to keep being consciously aware of what it was she was thinking, albeit she didn't know she was thinking it, that unconscious bind. She was thinking it and it was impacting her behavior. So I wanted her to be aware and keep being aware, keep being conscious of that unconscious thought. Because we know that once you're consciously aware of it, it's malleable, it can change, it can be deleted, it can be overwritten. And the science tells us that, the science of memory reconsolidation tells us that. But I also wanted her to take her disconfirming knowledge with her because I knew that her being consciously aware of her knowing that many people contribute confidently without being overbearing or attention seeking, I knew that if she took that piece of paper and looked at it a few times over that week, her brain would draw her attention to any person contributing in a meeting confidently without being overbearing or attention seeking. And I knew that that would reinforce that disconfirming knowledge that Beth already have and make it even stronger. So that was step 3 that I wanted Beth to go through, which was noticing that disconfirming knowledge in practice and keeping that unconscious belief conscious in her mind. I hope I'm not blinding you with science and losing you here. I never really explained this level of detail about how change work actually works, but I decided you were ready for it. So here we are. So what I really wanted was for Beth to come back in the next session and tell me how she got on. And in this session, which was great, we managed to do step 4, which is verification. And this step is really for me. So I want to know, how did you get on, Beth? And notice, I wasn't asking Beth to change her behavior. I wasn't asking Beth to practice speaking up in meetings or practice. I wasn't doing any of that. All I was doing was asking Beth to keep her awareness, her conscious, on her unconscious thinking pattern and on that disconfirming knowledge. I didn't ask her to change anything. So she comes back for her session the next week. And I want to know, okay, has Beth's disconfirming knowledge, has her new awareness fully replaced that old belief? And I knew the indicator of that success would be that Beth would have seen a shift both in her thinking, but also in her behavior. So first off, she told me, I noticed people in meetings all week who weren't overbearing or attention seeking, making perfectly valid points, confidently, sharing their expertise, sharing their knowledge, and it was fine, is what she told me. Okay, so I'm thinking, great. And I'm asking, okay, how did you feel when you noticed that? She said, I couldn't believe that I was ever thinking that if I just made the point that I was trying to make, it would turn me into one of those people. It totally wouldn't. She even said that her brain had offered her loads of examples where she, in the past, had been in meetings, making points, being sure and confident in her expertise without being one of those people at all. So once her brain was on it, it was offering examples everywhere of people confidently making a point in meetings that weren't overbearing or attention seeking. And it had even gone one step further and given her examples from her own back catalogue of meetings of where she'd done that too. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, sounds good. And I want to know, what did you notice then? And she said, I actually found it funny. I found it really funny to think that the whole time I'd been sat there in those meetings, believing, albeit that she didn't realize, that if she was confident and made her point, she would be like an arrogant, attention seeking one of those people. That belief she now found laughable, which is a really strong indicator for me that that belief has been deleted, updated, erased. And over the course of our next couple of sessions, Beth reported back now being able to say what she needed, say what she wanted, be confident and speak up. There was a couple of examples where she said some belief reared its head and she was able to say, we don't worry about that anymore. And then just readjust without any drama and without any overthinking afterwards. So for me, that was job done. Change work happened. Step 4, verification, change work complete, off Beth goes into her life. Now, that is just one example, but this way of working, this way of coaching the unconscious mind is applicable in a lot of scenarios, especially when we're talking about feeling confident at work. Because think about it. The clients that I'm working with, they have the expertise, they have the experience, they know what they're doing, but they don't feel as confident as they want to. And mostly they're slightly confused by that. There's no logical reason why they can't be confident, given the fact that they have the expertise, they have the experience, and they have the knowledge. So what does that tell us? Maybe there is something unconscious or multiple things which are unconscious, which are creating the problems they're experiencing. Whether that's stress and anxiety around public speaking, big meetings, interaction with senior colleagues, negative mind chatter, a lot of overthinking conversations or feedback, over-preparing, feeling the need to know everything and freaking out if they have to say, I don't know, feeling that imposter syndrome and wondering, why am I even in this job, even though they are, struggling to put themselves out there and say yes to things they want, or struggling to say no, struggling to give difficult or constructive feedback, struggling with conflict, right? All of these things can have an unconscious root. And there's different ways of doing change work. You could just say, I am going to white knuckle these things. I'm still going to be terrified of them, but I'm just going to do them. Like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And sometimes you have to do that. But sometimes you don't have to do that. Sometimes, like in Beth's case, you can figure out the unconscious bind that you're in, and you can delete it, override it, update it with new or disconfirming knowledge that allows you to change more effortlessly. That stops you from having to white knuckle it because it dissolves what the problem was. And this is just one example of hundreds. And if you're an old coaching client or a current coaching client listening to this, you'll probably remember some of the unconscious beliefs that you couldn't believe you were believing once you noticed them. These sessions are always fun because it feels like we're diving through rooms in people's minds, shining a little torch or a little spotlight into areas in their brain where they just didn't know stuff was even in there. And that's always fun. So I wanted you to know a little bit about how change happens. I wanted you to understand a bit about the process of memory reconsolidation. This is the science behind why this kind of change works. And I wanted you to get a bit of an understanding of how there is often a very logical explanation for why you might be finding something difficult. even if you don't know what that logical explanation is yet. Just like Beth didn't know why she was finding this difficult. Why couldn't she just speak up in this meeting? She knew she had the experience. She knew she had the expertise. Well, there was a very logical reason why. And now you know what it was. Because she was believing that if she was confident and spoke up, she would be one of those attention-seeking, overbearing people. One of those people who she really didn't want to be. And while she had no idea that's what she was thinking, her options were stay silent in those meetings or white knuckle the change. Thankfully, she didn't have to do either. Thank you, Beth, for allowing me to bring a little piece of your change work to the masses. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I will leave a few links in the show notes. So if you're on your phone or you're scrolling, go and take a look in the show notes now. The first is a free resource that I recommend everybody who listens to the podcast. If you want to feel more confident at work, this is the place to start. Take the free assessment. It's called the Confidence Assessment, and it basically does what it says on the tin. It delves a little bit into your mind and asks you a few simple questions and then tells you what you need to do to feel more confident at work. If you want to come and do this work with me, supported by me, you can work with me one-on-one like Beth did. And there's a link in the show notes. Just click that and put some time in my diary and come and explore coaching. We'll look at what your specific challenges are and I'll tell you what work I think you need to do in order to feel confident at work. The second option is to join us in the Members Club. Now, this is for women-only professionals and it is a place where you can access on-demand training, live coaching, to support you building your confidence over time. You can either join us for a quarter or a year. And if you're thinking about getting yourself a Christmas gift, buy yourself this for the year, especially if you would love the gift of feeling more confident at work. If somebody could give you that in a box, would it be a really great gift? Well, this is that in a box. So there's a link in the show notes. Come and join us. I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.
Confident, confident, confident. I can be confident, 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 confident. I can be confident at work.